Alright, so today we have a quick, easy job. We're going to switch out the fuel injectors. So I'm rebuilding a couple throttle bodies that I don't have injectors for. So I'm going to take the injectors out of this car, put them in that, and then put the new injectors in here. And then that way I know I have 4 good working injectors, because you know what they say. New just means never ever worked, right? So I don't want to put new injectors in it and then take the chance of them not working. In any case, very quick, very easy. First thing we're going to do is take off the air cleaner lid, pull the air cleaner out. Then once we have that out, then we'll go ahead and disconnect the 2 electrical connectors. And then there's 5 screws on each of the injector tops. Right? So we'll take those 5 screws out. There's 3 in the back and 2 over top of the injectors. The 2 over top of the injectors are slightly smaller than the 3 in the back. So you do want to make sure of that and put the right lengths in. Once we get those 5 screws out, the next thing we'll do is go ahead and pop that up. Now sometimes you can just pop it up with your fingers, sometimes you got to put a little pry bar in there or a screwdriver or something and pop it up. So there we go. We have the left rear out, and there's 2 different injectors for this car, and you got to make sure that you put the right injector in. Okay, so what we're going to do first is pop out that old injector. There's a lip on the top of the injector you can put a screwdriver on. Pull that out. Once you pop it out, it's got a O-ring at the bottom, and then it's got a filter. Right, so we're going to replace all the O-rings, and we're going to replace the filter. So here we got a TJ16, right? That's for the left side, and then the right side is a TJ12. Slightly different injectors for both sides, so you want to make sure you get this right. So we'll pull out that injector, like I said. We'll get that thing ready to go. We'll go get the new injector. The new injector does come with all the gaskets you'll need. At least it does if you buy the standard injectors. So first thing we'll do is take that new injector and we'll put the rubber O-ring on the bottom of the injector. The fuel filter is already connected to the injector, so we'll just slide that down. Once we get that O-ring on there, I'll just drop it down into the throttle body just to give it a place to rest for a second, and we'll go ahead and start scraping these 2 gaskets. Now there's a gasket that goes around the edge of the throttle body where the fuel actually comes in to the injector port, and then there's another smaller gasket that we have to replace, and that's where the fuel actually comes into the injector. So 2 small gaskets. We'll clean that all up. Once we get that cleaned up and ready to go, ready to accept the new gasket, then we'll go ahead, we'll pull the injector back out, and we'll replace that O-ring in the metal tab. So I'm kind of doing this with the injector in. I probably could have used the old injector, but I'm just making sure I get no gasket in that opening. So now we'll pull out, it's an O-ring and a metal ring. So we'll pull out the O-ring and we'll drop that down. Once we get the O-ring in there, then there's a metal ring that goes on top of that. It's almost like a compression gasket. And then the injector sits in on top of that. And once we have that, then we have our 2 gaskets, one in the front and one in the back. Here's the back one there. We'll go ahead and we'll drop that down. Then we'll just put the 5 screws back in, right? Once again, remember that your 2 shorter screws go in the front and the 3 longer screws go in the back. Very straightforward job. You got to take very little apart to do this. Like I said, the only reason I'm doing it is I want to know that the injectors I'm putting into the throttle bodies that I'm rebuilding at this time, they work correctly. So I have a complete Crossfire injection setup that I don't know if I'm going to hold on to it or I'm going to sell it. But if I sell it, I want to make sure that I sell it with two good injectors. So we'll just go back and forth a couple of times, right? Snug it up and then go back and retighten it. Don't want to tighten everything at one time. You'll end up distorting something and cracking something. And we're just going to throw the electrical connector back on. That one's done, right? So now we'll go ahead over to the passenger side, right? And we'll take out these 5 screws and we'll take out that electrical connector. Now this one, when I took off the electrical connector, there's a rubber plug that kind of keeps the connector, I guess, from vibrating. And that fell off, so make sure that you pay attention to that and put that back in. Now this one's a little bit more stuck, so there's a little opening on the side. You can get in there with the screwdriver and just pop that up. Now we'll clean off those gaskets. And then, like I said, the passenger side, if it's a standard, it takes a TJ12, and the driver's side we used a TJ16. So we'll go ahead and we'll clean all this up again. We'll get those 2 gaskets cleaned up. Once we get those gaskets cleaned up, then we'll go ahead and take the injector out, replace the injector, put it all back together. You want to be careful cleaning this up, right? You want to make sure that you get the gasket off, but you also want to make sure that you don't gouge that aluminum that the throttle body's made of. So once again, we're going to pry up that injector. The injector has a big notch in the top that you can just put a screwdriver underneath of it. Pop that right out. Make sure that we put in the right one. Then, like I said, this comes with all the gaskets. It actually comes with the gaskets for a Chevy truck style system as well that has the 2 injectors and 1 throttle body. So it's going to have more gaskets than what you need. All right, so we got those 2 pieces cleaned up. Now we'll go ahead and clean up the top of the injector ring. Now, just as a side note, you know that injector that I'm holding right now, that has a pulse dampener in it. That's not where your adjustment for your fuel pressure went. The first injector that I took off on the driver's side, that has the fuel pressure regulator in it, right? And it has a little D screw at the bottom. And you can take it off just like I'm doing here, turn that D screw, and that'll change your fuel pressure, right? But the one on the passenger side, all that's doing is taking the pulses out. So here we go. We got the O-ring down in the bottom. We're going to set that down in there. We've got the O-ring and the metal washer at the top. Now we're going to put those 2 gaskets on, and we're going to drop the cover back on. Okay? Once again, make sure you use the right size gaskets. There's a couple different gaskets in there. Drop that over. And then put the 5 pins back in. Once we get those 5 screws back in, we'll be ready to go. We'll start it up. Make sure it doesn't have any leaks. Make sure that the injector patterns look good. Right? There is a possibility that you put in a new injector and it's worse than the one you took out. So. Doesn't happen often, but it does definitely happen. You can see that gasket that's laying there in the air cleaner. That's the gasket for the throttle bodies that hold 2 injectors. Put the electrical connector back in, put the rubber back into the electrical connector. Now we're just going to clean up the mess, right? There's a couple little gasket pieces in there that we got to get cleaned up. We'll get all that out, make sure that there's no leftover materials that we're going to suck down into the motor. Not that a little piece of cardboard would hurt, but then we'll go ahead and fire it up. Check for leaks. So it's running between 13 and 14 psi of pressure. Runs good. Sounds a little funny on the video, but it actually is running really good. Running on all 8, everything's good. So we'll put the air cleaner back up and we'll call it for a day. All right, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.